The stars were quiet. The scanners of the Galactic Empire searched every corner of space every single day. Every planet. Every moon. Every ship. Nothing was ever missed. But today, something strange happened. In a remote region called Sector 9G. A large scan wave returned with blank data. No planets, no debris, no signals. Just silence. But silence was impossible. Even empty space had background radiation, gravity pulls, or leftover noise. The operator at the Galactic Records Department frowned. He ran the scan again. Blank. He called for his superior, a data analyst named Liner. She had worked for the Empire for over 10 years and had never seen a null return. She watched the screen as the scan ran again for the third time. Still blank. There is no record of anything ever existing there, she said slowly. But last week, we received a long-distance ping near that exact zone. This shouldn't happen. Her team checked the logs. And then they saw something impossible. A destroyed probe from 300 years ago had recorded a signal, just before its last breath. The message was cut, corrupted, and full of static. But one word remained clear in the scrambled recording. Earth. Liner froze. There's no file named Earth in the Empire's master database. One junior technician said nervously. Exactly, Liner whispered. That's the problem. Liner submitted a high-priority request for deep investigation. She was allowed to send a small research cruiser to Sector 9G under full stealth protocol. The Council didn't think it was important. Just an error. Maybe an old glitch. But Liner didn't believe in glitches, not in this part of the galaxy. Within 2 days, her cruiser reached the edge of Sector 9G. As the ship drifted closer to the uncharted space, things began to change. The scanner started, picking up energy pulses not natural, but artificial. It was shielded, like someone was hiding something behind a wall. Liner stared at the dark star map. There was a shadow, a presence. But still, nothing showed up on official systems. Suddenly, her ship's internal AI beeped sharply. Unrecognized planetary body detected. Estimated radius. Earth class. Atmosphere. Oxygen rich. Multiple cities found. Warning. Defensive satellites are tracking us. The crew panicked. What is this place? Who built all this? One officer shouted. Then the voice came. A strong, cold voice broke into their communications. System without permission. It didn't speak the common galactic language. It spoke a dead dialect. Ancient. Human. But the translation module adjusted quickly. You are entering Terran space. Identify yourselves. Everyone on the bridge went silent. Terran? Liner repeated softly. Who the hell are the Terrans? Before they could respond, the unknown planet began broadcasting images warnings. In every major language used across the galaxy. It wasn't just a defense system. It was a message to the entire Empire. Liner tried to contact the nearest Empire station, but her message bounced back. Blocked. Jammed. We're being watched, she whispered. We're not alone here. She looked again at the corrupted probe recording from 300 years ago. The last word still echoed in her mind. Earth. It wasn't a mistake. It was hidden. But why? And by whom? Back in the Empire's central core, the news of Liner's discovery was slow to spread. Her live transmission had been cut off just minutes after detecting the strange planet. High Command marked her cruiser as a waiting update. But a few old officers in the war archives heard rumors. One of them, General Kovar, remembered a name from deep history lessons tales from before the Empire became what it is now. There was a species once, he told a younger officer, a species that vanished after one war. No one found there. Worlds, no remains, no explanation. They called themselves humans, the officer laughed. That's just legend, sir. But Kovar didn't laugh. He stood up and walked to a dark file cabinet locked by handprint code. As the drawer opened, dust rose like a ghost from the past. Inside was a single, forgotten file. The label said, Terran Origin System, erased from records. Do not investigate. Kovar stared at it for a long time. Then why are they back? He whispered ***. A small research cruiser drifted in silence near the strange planet. Liner stood still at the main window, watching the world below. It looked like any normal planet. Blue oceans, green land, cloud systems, life signs, cities, but no flags, no welcome signals. Just silence and cold warning satellites that tracked their every move. She gave a command. Pull back to safe range. Do not provoke. But it was already too late. A second voice came through the comms. Terran Protocol. You are being scanned. The ship's AI flickered and shook. The lights dimmed for a moment. A low hum echoed through the walls. Someone or something was inside their systems. Not breaking in, just looking. Then the power returned. But the crew was frozen. They scanned everything. Names, maps, our Empire credentials, the pilot said, voice shaking. They know exactly who we are. Liner turned to her science officer. Can you trace their signal? No. It didn't come from the planet. Then from where? He looked pale. From above us. They looked up. There was nothing visible, but a strange reflection appeared in the stars. Something huge. A shape, slowly revealing itself. A ship. Not of imperial design. Smooth, black. Silent. Back at the Galactic Empire's core station, General. Kovar moved quickly. He called for a secure emergency meeting. Only the oldest war veterans and record keepers were invited. He placed the Terran file on the table. This is not fiction, he said. The file was locked by the founders themselves. This isn't about a hidden planet. It's about a forgotten enemy. An old alien admiral across the table leaned forward. You mean humans? Kovar nodded. They didn't die out. They hid, or someone helped them disappear. But why would they hide for 300 years? Another commander asked. Kovar answered without emotion. To evolve. Back near the unknown planet, Liner's ship was now completely surrounded by Shadows 3. Massive warships had decloaked without a sound. They were built in designs no one recognized. Then, a direct signal hit their command deck. This is Commander Rel of the Terran Recon Fleet. Your ship is unharmed. You may leave this space if you do not wish to engage. Liner stepped forward. We are from the Galactic Empire. We did not come to attack. We only want answers. Silence followed. Then, Rel's voice returned. You came looking for what your empire erased. You will find it. Suddenly, data packets started downloading into the cruiser's systems. Not viruses, files. Images, videos, maps, history, humans, cities, wars, peace, betrayal, and finally a message from the past, time-stamped over 3 centuries ago. If the Empire ever returns, show them what they tried to bury. Liner's crew watched in shock as the full truth began to unfold. There were scenes of ancient battles between human ships and early Empire forces. Recordings of peace talks that ended with betrayal. Footage of the Empire's leaders issuing orders to delete all human existence from the record. She whispered, they didn't just disappear. They were wiped. Why weren't we told? An officer asked. Linor. Didn't answer. She COULDN single quotes T. Suddenly, the ship shook. But not from attack. Something much larger had arrived. A colossal human vessel exited warp just above them. Bigger than any capital ship in the Empire. Sharp angles. Jet black armor. No insignia. It didn't send threats. It didn't activate weapons. But Its mere presence shook everyone. A final message blinked on the screen. We are the children of Earth. You lost the right to remember us. But we did not forget. And then all human ships vanished. Liner stared out into the stars. The space where the ships had been was now empty again. Silent again. But it wasn't like before. Now she knew. This part of the galaxy wasn't empty. Was watching. She turned to her crew. Prepare the report. The Empire must see this. But deep inside, Liner feared something more. Not that humanity had returned, but that they had been waiting all this time, and still chose not to strike. Yet. Asterisk. The Imperial Council sat in silence. Liner's full report had arrived. It contained classified video files, unknown ship schematics, and historical records that should not exist. The data was clear. Humanity had not been wiped out. They had been erased. Intentionally. Emperor Vayer read the same word over and over again. Earth, status, removed. By order of Prime Directive OX. He slammed his fist on the table. Who gave this order? He growled. No one erases an entire species. From the archives, unless they're afraid. The room remained quiet until a whisper broke the silence. I've seen that code before, said Elder Marin, the oldest living member of the council. It was used only once. During the human wars, over 300 years ago. Everyone turned toward her. She looked like she carried the weight of history on her shoulders. I was a junior aide, she said slowly. I remember watching the final battle from a screen. We thought we had cornered the last human fleet. But then, everything went dark. No explosions. No escape. Just nothing. Like they disappeared into space itself. And no one questioned. That? Asked Kovar. They didn't dare, she answered. Orders came from the founders. Humans were to be forgotten completely. Far from the Empire, in a quiet black chamber inside a Terran stronghold. Commander Rel watched Liner's cruiser retreat from Terran space. They won't forget this time, said a voice behind him. He turned to see Marshal Darren, a man who had served in the Silent Fleet for 40 years. Their minds will break before they understand what we've become, Darren added. Rel nodded. We showed mercy. They don't realize that. The Terrans had been watching the galaxy for centuries. Evolving, preparing, not for war but for the moment when the truth would come looking again. They had not started the war. 300 years ago, they had only ended it too fast. Back at Empire Command, chaos was spreading. The younger generation didn't believe the files. They thought it was a trick, a lie. But the older veterans knew better. General Kovar stood before a packed war room. They're not extinct, he said. They're more advanced than us now, and we don't know what they want. What if they want revenge? Someone asked. Kovar looked at the projection of Earth's system, now marked Danger Nitrogen Monoxide Entry. If they wanted revenge, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Meanwhile, Liner was called to a closed-door meeting with the Emperor. He studied her carefully. Tell me the truth. What did you feel when you saw them? She didn't lie. I felt ... watched, not by enemies, but by people who knew more than we did. They weren't angry. They weren't afraid. They were calm, in control, like they knew this day would come. The Emperor leaned forward. And what do they want? I don't know, but I think they're waiting for us to remember who we were. In the dark corners of the galaxy, stories began to spread. Smugglers told tales of ghost ships flying without fuel. Traders spoke of strange warnings near forgotten jump gates. And some said they saw tall figures wearing black suits with glowing eyes who said nothing, just watched. They called them the Shadows of Earth. Others whispered a darker name, the Forgotten Warborn. In a hidden archive vault, General Kovar opened an ancient locker marked Class Red. Inside was an old blade, not plasma, not energy, just sharpened steel. A relic. Engraved on its surface were words in a dead language. He ran his fingers over. It's slowly. The galaxy may forget us, but we remember everything. Meanwhile, deep beneath Earth's surface, a different kind of war was being prepared. One not of weapons, but of memory. The humans didn't plan to destroy the Empire. They planned to remind it, because sometimes the worst punishment is to make your enemy live long enough to face the truth. The Empire's space was strong. No unknown ships had entered its borders in years. Every system was watched, every wormhole guarded. But now, the sky itself felt nervous. Above the twin moons of Yarna Prime, a single dark shape appeared. No alarms, no warp signature. It simply was there. A ship, silent, unknown. Its black hull reflected no stars. It moved without thrusters. It had no name, no flag, no transponder. But everyone on the moon base could feel it. Something had arrived. On the ground, Commander Tellin watched the strange ship from the tower screen. "What is that?" he asked. His officer checked the sensors. "We don't know. It's not in any ship registry, not even in the ancient codes." Another warning flashed on the screen. "Object is observing, not responding to communication." Tellin's voice turned sharp. "Ready defense systems. Do not fire. Yet." But before they could aim anything, the base's power flickered. For 2 seconds, all lights went out. In that brief moment, everyone saw the shadow of a man standing at the edge of the control room. When the lights returned, he was gone, and a message had been written across every screen. "We remember Yarna." Back in the Imperial capital, Liner stood beside General Kovar, watching security footage sent from Yarna Prime. "This is not a warning," Liner said. "It's a memory," Kovar nodded. "During the human war, we launched test weapons from Yarna's surface. It was one of the first targets. You think they're sending a message?" Kovar looked into the cold screen. "No, I think they're reminding us that they never forgot." Across the galaxy, hundreds of ships began appearing, always alone, always silent. Each one entered a different star system where the Empire had committed past crimes, purges, false treaties, wiped colonies. Every ship did the same thing it watched. Then it vanished. People started calling them ghost sentinels. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said the humans could walk between systems without using jump gates. Others claimed they weren't ships at all, but living machines. But one thing was certain. The galaxy was no longer watching humans. Humans were watching the galaxy. Inside the council chamber, the Emperor stood before all the representatives of the Empire's core species. "Our ancient sins are returning to the surface," he said. "A people we erased has reappeared with strength greater than ours." A senator replied in fear, "Shall we prepare for war?" The Emperor shook his head. "If they wanted war, they would have burned our skies already." "No, they want something else. They want to be seen. Deep in a forgotten system, on a long-dead planet called Elrond's Drift, a child wandered through ancient ruins with her grandfather. She found a strange stone with carved words that weren't in their language. Her grandfather froze. He had seen that writing once before, on the hull of a ship that vanished into black space without a sound. The words translated to, "The day you remember us is the day we stop hiding." Meanwhile, on the hidden side of the Terran moon base, Marshal Darren stood before a group of Terran strategists. "Have we heard from the Empire yet?" he asked. "Not yet," one replied. "But their outposts are beginning to notice patterns. They're afraid." "Good," Darren said softly. "Let them fear. But we won't strike until they look at our face and recognized their lie. And then it happened. A massive holographic signal appeared in the skies of 5 major Empire worlds. It was not a threat. It was not a demand dot. It was a name. Earth. Followed by a sentence that chilled every system to silence. You removed. Use from your history. Now we write our own. Panic broke out. Some demanded war. Others called for surrender. But the Empire had no target, no path to follow. Earth was still hidden, its system still cloaked. Its ships still shadows. But its message was heard across the stars. The unknown had arrived. And it remembered everything. Asterisk. The Empire needed answers. The panic was growing. The sightings of silent ships, the holograms, the name Earth flashing across secure systems. None of it made sense to the younger generation. But the older ones, they were too quiet dot in a sealed chamber deep beneath the imperial capital. High-ranking officials sat behind heavy metal doors, surrounded by shadows, guarded by silent drones. They had called for a secret meeting. They had called for her. Liner walked into the dark chamber. The officials didn't rise. They just stared. Commander Liner, the Chancellor said, you saw them first. You heard them speak. Tell us what you believe. She looked around the room, faces without emotion. Eyes filled with fear they refused to admit. I believe, she said carefully, that they were not hiding. They were waiting. Waiting for what? One ambassador snapped. Liner paused, then answered slowly, for us to ask the right question. Far away, in orbit around a blue planet the Empire had never seen before, Marshal Darren watched from a silent command deck. The human fleet hovered like giants in the sky, unmoving, patient. They'll talk soon, he said. Captain Wren stood beside him. You really think they'll try peace? Darren didn't smile. No, but they'll pretend. Wren looked confused. They always pretend before they betray. So we give them the chance to speak behind walls, behind lies. Let them dig their hole. The Empire finally sent a reply. Not a fleet, not a warning. A message. To the entity known as Earth, we request dialogue, location of your choosing. Terms, no weapons, 1 representative each. The reply came too. Hours later, agreed. Come to Vask Station, no escorts. Bring no lies. The words felt sharp, like a memory burned into steel. Liner was chosen to represent the Empire. The flight to Vask Station was short, but her mind felt stretched across centuries. She reviewed files, ancient war maps, images of cities the Empire, once destroyed, and then Earth's file, still blank, still marked, erased by order. She didn't understand who made that decision, but she was starting to understand why, because the truth scared them. Vask Station was dead silent. Once an old mining hub, now empty except for one ship. It was waiting, smooth, silent. Blacker than space. Linor stepped out of her transport. Her boots echoed against the steel floor. And then she saw him. A man stood in the distance, tall, calm, wearing a plain gray uniform with no rank, no name, no weapon. His eyes locked onto hers. I am Elias, he said simply. Terran speaker. I am Liner, she replied. Empire representative. He nodded once. Then let's begin. They sat across a steel table inside the old command room. No guards, no cameras, just words. Liner took a breath. Why now? Why return after 300 years? Elias didn't move. You reached for the truth, he said. You found our name. You entered the zone your people swore never to touch again. Liner frowned. I didn't know that zone was forbidden. Your ancestors did, he said. And they burned every record to hide it. She leaned forward. What did the Empire do? Elias tapped the table lightly. You already know. Liner paused, then asked the question no one else dared. Why didn't you destroy us when you had the chance? For the first time, Elias smiled, but it wasn't warm, because revenge is small. Memory is forever, and now we let you remember. The station lights dimmed for a moment. Liner's COM device lit up. Live feed from the Empire was coming in. One of the Empire's outer colonies had gone offline. Not attacked. Not damaged. Just gone. The entire colony had surrendered without a fight. A simple black flag with a silver line had been raised. The same flag now shone on the wall behind Elias. We didn't come to start war, Elias said, standing slowly. We came to finish the silence. He walked away without another word. Liner sat alone, staring at the table. And on the steel surface, a message faded into view just for her. It was never about war. It was about being remembered. Asterisk. The Empire trusted its systems more than it trusted its people. Every record, every map, every detail in the Grand Archive was considered fact unchanging, unquestioned. But now, Liner knew the data had lied. She returned from Basque Station with Elias's message burned into her mind. No threats, no demands. Just a quiet, steady reminder. We were never gone. You chose to forget. Inside the Imperial Archives, Liner stood before the Master Core, the heart of the Empire's memory. Only the highest-ranking officers were allowed here. The AI voice greeted her coldly. Welcome, Commander Liner. Please state query. She took a breath. Show me original records of Earth. Before deletion. Query denied. No such planet on record. Override, she said. Use Council Code. Gray Sigma 9. A pause. Then, override accepted. Retrieving hidden data. The screen flickered. Then a wave of Forbidden's history came flooding back. Maps of Sol System. Images of cities tall, glowing towers beside blue oceans. Names, New Europa, Terra Prime, Mars colonies. And files stamped with red warnings. D.O. Not release. Humanity equals high risk. Removed from galactic memory. The videos were worse. Old footage from 312 cycles ago showed human soldiers fighting beasts the Empire had never defeated, facing gravity storms without armor, surviving wounds no other species could, and most frightening of all, they were laughing while doing it. Liner staggered back. The data hadn't just been lost. It had been locked away with intent. Who deleted this? She whispered. The AI answered without emotion. By order of Emperor First Class Elvin X, signed by 12 Supreme Commanders. Reason: humanity's growth was unpredictable. Emotional chaos, technological instability, strategic advantage, uncontrollable. They didn't destroy Earth because it was weak. They erased Earth because it was too strong to control. Across the stars, the Terran ships continued appearing, always watching, always silent. But now, they weren't just appearing near Empire worlds. They were appearing inside Empire data systems. On classified terminals, strange black screens would flash for a second, then disappear. One word was always left behind: remember. In a secure meeting room, General Kovar slammed a file down in front of the council. This is the truth, he said. Earth wasn't our enemy. It was our fear. A young officer shouted, Then why haven't they attacked? Because they don't need to, Kovar said grimly. They are doing something worse. They are making our people doubt our own history. And it was working. Across the Empire, whispers grew. Citizens asked questions. Young cadets searched. Restricted files. Soldiers wondered if their medals were earned in truth or in lies. A rebellion hadn't started. But something deeper had docked out far away. Elias stood in a Terran command hall, surrounded by glowing screens. Behind him, the planet Earth floated peacefully in space. He turned to Marshal Darren. "They've opened the archives." Elias said, "Good," Darren replied. "Then they're finally facing what they did." Elias nodded. "Truth is the weapon they never saw coming." Liner couldn't sleep. She watched one file over and over again. It was old, grainy, but it showed a human doctor running into a battlefield to save injured alien civilians, Imperial civilians, during the first expansion. War. The humans weren't monsters. They weren't conquerors. They were survivors, fighters, builders, protectors. So why had they been erased? Because they didn't bow. Because they didn't break. Because they didn't fit the Empire's plan. Then the final blow came. A hidden message was found inside the oldest Imperial server. No one knew how long it had been there. Maybe centuries. When decrypted, it showed a human face, calm, serious, tired. He spoke in perfect galactic tongue. "You feared what we could become, so you made us ghosts. But ghosts don't stay buried forever. We are Earth, and we remember." In that moment, Liner knew the war hadn't started. Because it already ended long ago, the only thing left now was truth. Asterisk. Darkness filled the grand chamber of the Empire. A new emergency session had been called, one no one could ignore. Every major species had sent their leaders. The room was tense, silent. The reason? Earth. Not because it had attacked, not because it had made demands, but because it had done something far worse. It had waited. And now, every system across the Empire was asking the same question. Why did we forget them? And what else have we erased? Liner stood before the gathered council. She no longer wore the polished uniform of the Empire. She had taken off the badge. Now, she wore plain black like the shadows that had watched them for months. "I have no speech," she said. "I have only truth." She tapped her datapad, and the room's holoscreens lit up with images, real ones. Humans helping aliens. Humans building homes on shattered planets. Humans offering peace. Fighting beside allies. Protecting the weak. And then, footage of the day the Empire betrayed them. A silent fleet surrounding Earth. A sudden blackout. A false story created. A name deleted from history. Not because humanity failed, but because they didn't kneel. They didn't disappear. Liner said softly, "We buried them, but they remembered." Far across space, inside the Terran stronghold, orbiting a red star, Elias received the Empire's open broadcast. He watched Liner's speech in silence. Then he turned to a room filled with human commanders, scientists and historians. "It's time," he said. But there was no war call. No sirens. Just ships. Thousands of Terran vessels began decloaking all at once, not over enemy worlds, but over empty space, neutral zones, forgotten battlefields. They didn't fire. They simply waited. Like guardians. Like memories, carved in steel. People on Empire worlds stepped outside to look at the skies. In some cities, black flags with silver lines dropped from the skies, softly landing like feathers. In others, children stared up as a shadow passed the sun. And everywhere, across every communication line, a single phrase repeated: "We did not return to conquer. We returned to be remembered." General Kovar stood on the balcony of the high citadel, watching one such ship float in silence far above. A young soldier beside him whispered, "What do we do now, sir?" Kovar didn't look away. "We learn," he said, "and we listen. And maybe, if we are lucky, we get to be forgiven." Back on Earth, the skies were clear. No war, no bloodshed, just peace. Marshal Darren watched the stars. "Do you think they truly understand now?" Elias asked beside him. Aaron paused. No, he said, not yet, but they will. Elias looked thoughtful. We could have ended them. We did, Aaron replied. Just not the way they feared. Liner walked through the Empire's Public History Center. A new room had opened. Crowds gathered around. Above the entrance, carved in stone, Earth, the forgotten flame. Inside, for the first time in 300 years, the truth was on display. Not to cause fear, not to build power, but to heal. Photos of old Terran cities, recordings of ancient voices, names long erased, now restored. And in the center of the room one silent item, a worn-out Terran child's book. Title, To Stars. Unknown. It was simple. Hopeful. Hewing. That evening, Lena received one final message, encrypted, anonymous. Just 4 words. Now we watch you. She smiled softly. They weren't watching in hate. They were watching to see what the Empire would become now, because the past had returned, not with weapons, but with memory, with patience, with truth, and humanity had not been forgotten. They had only been waiting. Asterisk.